Welcome to Muslim Apologetics Australia. As you can see on the right, that is Brother Rami. He's a Muslim apologist from Australia and is debunking the 20 questions to a Muslim response. As you can see, I'll put a hyperlink below this video and you can see Brother Rami's video refuting this person clearly in all of his points. But the reason why I'm mirroring this video, I want to do an extended version of a rebuttal. So any points of my own I want to add to the argument just to bring more points to the table and further debunk these people. So we'll run through the video and I'll just put my commentary in where I think that I feel I should add something of my own, which may hopefully also benefit the Muslims and the non-Muslims. Let's continue.
Given that the left has embraced Islamism to such a degree that they're now basically one and the same thing, I've got a few questions.
Hey Paul, how are you? So apparently you have some questions to some Muslims, 20 questions apparently. So I thought I'll do my best to answer them for you. So let us get started right now.
If banning people from countries because of their religion is bad, then why do 16 Muslim countries ban Israelis because of their religion?
First of all, this isn't a religious ban. All Jews can visit any of those countries. It's actually a political ban due to Israel's defiance of international law and illegal building of settlements in Palestinian territories. This is not a contested issue anymore, as Israel has been reprimanded by allies and foes alike for its controversial activity. And the nations that you mentioned, by the way, ban Israelis from entering and not Jews, as you erroneously state.
If Islam is cultural...
Now, just to add a few points of my own, notice the double standards and the hypocrisy, and this is what we see from the theme of the Islamophobes. They say things like, why do Muslim countries ban certain people? But listen to the hypocrisy. These people in the West are supposed to be the libertarians of freedom of speech and freedom of expression, freedom of rights, and so forth. And they're against totalitarianism, they're against dictatorship, they're against basically bans and human rights. So when you're pointing a finger at a Muslim country and you're saying, look over there, you see people banning, so why are Muslims getting upset and so forth? Well, we're not actually getting upset at you because you're just as bigoted as they are, as those Muslim countries may are. We are getting upset because you claim to be from the Western modern world and from the world of libertarianism and democracy and freedom of expression and freedom of choice. Yet what you're basically doing is saying, hey, look, don't point a finger at us because we're banning things. Look at those Muslim countries, they ban things too. Now, please tell me now, how are you now different from those Muslim countries when you're also banning? Fine, I understand. If you ban, that's good. But don't then call yourself a libertarian, an open-minded person, a person that is for all freedom of values and so forth. That's what we have a problem with, is the hypocrisy. Let's continue.
Islam is culturally compatible with the West. Why do 11 Muslim countries still execute gay people?
Well, your facts are a little skewed on this matter. 5 countries, not 11, definitely execute homosexuals. And yes, those 5 countries are admittedly Muslim countries. These are state-sanctioned legislations, whereas the other 6 countries that you mentioned have partial and inconsistent treatment of homosexuals and are not supported by state legislation. So this differs based on region, religion, reason, and much more. Now, in saying that, there are 50 Muslim countries around the world. And seeming that 5 have definitive state-sanctioned execution for homosexuality, we actually come to see this is a minority of Muslim countries that still do this.
Okay, so I'll add my commentary on it now. Look at the double standards and the hypocrisy now. Now, he talks about Islam being intolerant and so forth, and it executes gay people. But, if I was living in the West, I can't practice certain things. For example, not that I want to do incest, but if I was to commit incest, consensual incest, I could go to prison for it. In fact, if I was to practice polygamy in Australia, I could get put in prison for breaking the law, get a warning, and if I continue to persist in that, they're going to put me in prison. So where is the Western tolerance here that you blame Muslim countries for executing gay people, yet you are from the libertarianism country, the Western country, a country of liberty and freedom of rights, but I cannot practice polygamy, nor if someone wants to indulge in incest can practice incest, and they could go to jail for that. Do you now criticize the West and say, oh, they're just barbaric, they're just not tolerant of other people's ethics and cultures? You see, a gay person can still live under a Muslim country and commit the act of homosexuality, disclosed in his own home. Just like, for example, if you wanted to eat pork or drink alcohol, you could do that in the own privacy of your home. Islam does not impinge on your own personal life. It is only when it becomes public nuisancy and fahisha, evil, that's when Islam jumps in and tells you, hey, don't do it here, right? So basically that's when Sharia law gets involved. And we have the same here in the West, for public nuisancy. You can't go and have sex with a girl outside, can you? No, you'll be imprisoned even in the West. So Islam does the same thing. You want to be a homosexual? You can be a homosexual. Just don't do it in public. Do it in your own home, in your own privacy. Don't tell anyone. Therefore, homosexuals can live together in peace with Muslims so long as they keep their fahasha, evil, to themselves. We can even show more double standards. Are Muslims allowed to have 2 wives in the West? No, you can't. The answer is absolutely no. Can a Muslim do it maybe in secret in the West? Possibly. You could. So, can we still live together in harmony? Yes, possibly. Why not? So that's how easily the tables can be turned on them. And the fact that the Prophet Muhammad never killed a homosexual in his life is a proof and a fact that the punishment can't even be carried out unless it's self-confession, unless the person is, doing it openly. But if you're doing it in secret, no one needs to know about it. So what's the problem? They can live in harmony and there's no problem there. In fact, I think Paul is a Christian. I'm not too sure if he is, but it's interesting because if he is, there's some double standards here. When we read Revelations 21:8, Jesus says, "But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderer, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, idolaters and liars will be casted into the lake of fire." So, it's interesting because they say, Islam is not compatible with gay people, but his own Jesus is not compatible with gay people in the next life. Amazing double standards if he's a Christian. Because Revelations 21:8 clearly says they will burn in the hellfire. Here's another point. Medical cannabis is still a crime in Australia, for example. But can you still take it? Well, so long as you don't sell it or promote it, you're doing it in secret, basically. Hundreds and thousands of Australians are doing this. The government knows about it. Is the Australian secular law intolerant or oppressive? Maybe they are. But it's only that they fear it's done publicly and sold openly. Otherwise, if it's done in your personal use, the government doesn't really care about it. Same with Islam and homosexuality. It's basically the same thing. You know, it's interesting because, people say Islam needs to respect our laws. And they may say things like, why are you doing things in secret? I could say, don't Islamophobes say, leave your religion in your home, don't bring it out into society and impinge it on others? So I can still live in harmony in the West and practice my faith in privacy of my own home. If that means taking a second wife, well, so be it. So if you as a non-Muslim want to live in a Sharia state, sure, you can live in the privacy of your own home and practice what you wish. Just don't tell anyone nor come out public about it. It's a give and take relationship. So yes, Islam is compatible with living side by side with the LGBT community. Just don't flash your boyfriend in my face and I won't flash my second wife in front of yours. Each to their own. Similarly, don't flash your cannabis in my face, go smoke it in your home. If you say Islam is intolerant, does not allow public things, then you need to critique your own system that does not wish to accept other values too, regardless whether it's religion or drugs or incest or all these other moralities. Let's continue.
Islam is culturally compatible with the West. Why do the majority of Muslims living in the UK think that homosexuality should be criminalised?
Now, this is where you start to fork off your points and begin to generalize based on independent and individual polling. You mentioned this one poll in the UK where it shows 52% of British Muslims think that homosexuality should be illegal. As distasteful as their personal opinions may be, other polls found in the UK, USA and Australia also show that approximately half of the population don't trust, like, or want their children to marry Muslims. So at least the xenophobia is shared in rations across this so-called clash of civilizations.
If Islam is culturally compatible with the West, why do supposedly modern Muslim countries like the United Arab Emirates detain, harass and threaten transgender people when they try to enter the country?
Well, the same reason that modern so-called Western nations like the United States this other transgendered person in Florida with profiling, humiliation, and then forced her to miss her flights due to airport security's discrimination of the transgendered. And this is all according to her own statement.
If Islam is culturally compatible with the West, why do you have something literally called the rape game, Taharush Gamia, and something called Bacha Bazi, where old men have sex with young boys?
I have personally never heard of anything called the rape gang. Is this more of your selective microscopic storytelling in order to generalize a broad population of 1.7 billion people? See, although these atrocious behaviors may have occurred due to certain individuals in a very few select countries, it does not make it necessarily an Arab or a Muslim thing. Just like beheading and drug crime isn't a Mexican or a Catholic thing, right? And as for the Bashabazi, which is only found really in Afghanistan, we see certain individuals yet again enacting on terrible criminal behavior with young boys. But I thought homosexuality was a sin in Islam. So your logic is this. Look, Islam is against homosexuality, and then look, Islam endorses grown men to have sex with young boys. You gotta get it right, mate.
Why do you fail against Islamic terrorism, yet organise mass protests when someone's cartoon of Muhammad?
Muslims fail to speak out against mass terrorism? Would you mind Googling for me? Then get back to me once you're exhausted from clicking on the next page button.
Why do you complain?
Okay, so, look at the double standards. He's like, why don't Muslims condemn terrorism? I just watched the video just recently Donald Trump, the president of America, he still hasn't condemned the Quebec mosque terrorist attack done by a right-wing Christian. He hasn't condemned that. So how come Donald Trump hasn't condemned this? I mean, if this was done by a Muslim, Donald Trump would have been on the Twitter button, write that nation out, which actually exposes the double standards and the hypocrisy when it comes to them. You know, these people are full of crocodile tears when Muslims actually get suffered, but then when Christians get suffered or non-Muslims get suffered, they expect all Muslims to put banners up of that particular country's land and start putting their condolences out. But when it comes to them, they're not held accountable for it. And this is the President of the United States, the upfront leader of the Western world.
About all Muslims being blamed for radical Islam, then shout down and intimidate ex-Muslims who speak out against radical Islam.
Muslims have and do condemn terrorism, whether moderate, strictly practicing, or coconut Muslim, it doesn't matter. And the ones shouting down ex-Muslims are simply individuals. We have no statistics or numbers to attest to how overwhelming this intimidation is. So how about we all just calm down a little bit?
Why do you insist?
Also add that this is just a fearing Islamophobic myth that they keep carrying on, that Muslims are constantly harassing and anyone who speaks against the Quran and so forth, Muslims are actually instigating to kill these people. You know, this is the biggest fab. Look at majority of the apologetics groups, you'll see Muslims debating Christians, and there has never been an argument in the sense where it turned out violence. We have debates on a daily basis, hundreds of them, at Hyde Park in England, where debates take place, Muslims and Christians, and they all critique one another. For example, James Smith is a staunch critiquer of the Quran, yet his life has never been threatened in the sense that, you know, they killed him and advocated his killing. He's had many, many peaceful debates with Muslims. So this nonsense that, Islam just wants to kill a certain individual because he simply critiques the Quran is a bunch of nonsense. You can find extremists in all parts of the world. In fact, I've even had personal emails sent to me because I critique the Bible and I've received death threats, but I don't go blowing that on trumpets and say, look, I'm receiving death threats. You see, the reason why they say they're receiving the death threats, I mean, even David Wood does this. He says this from these extremists only because to show that, hey, you know, he gets like a sympathy card out of it. Hey, look, whatever I'm saying must be true. You know, Muslims hate me and they want to kill me. So it's just basically trying to promote popularity for himself.